Hi, I'm Tanya White. Today I'd like to speak about a concept that became well known through the first Chabad Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, a concept that we talk about during Elul, and that is the idea of Hamelech b'sadeh, the notion that the king, being God, is in the field. There's a very famous analogy in Likutei Torah where they speak about the fact that during Elul, the time of divine closeness to Hashem comes down through the concept of the Sadeh, a little bit like a king who comes out to the field to greet the people working in the field face to face. And there's a question asked there, and that is if the divine presence is so great during Elul, why is it not a time of Kedusha like Shabbat or Yom Tov? And the answer is precisely because that's exactly the time that Hashem comes down to the Sadeh, meaning the Sadeh is the place below, it's the ground, it's the moment we have a sense of the immanence of God rather than transcendence of Him being up there in Shamayim. The reality of the human messiness is here down on earth, and that is exactly the point of meeting between the divine and the human during the time of Elul. On Shabbat, the movement is down to up. We become like God in a sense. We cease from creativity. We cease from working the field. During the month of Elul, the movement is from up, down, from transcendence to reality. So I want to ask the question, I want to take this notion, this idea of Hamelech b'sadeh, and ask what we're really talking about. What does it represent? What kind of divine human relationship does it represent? And why is that the paradigm, the one where we're closer to Hashem than any other time? Now, my knowledge and my aptitude in Chassidut is not as much as my knowledge in covenantal thinking. And I want to use the idea of the covenant, of the idea of a covenantal relationship with Hashem to understand this motif that Chabad bring of Hamelech b'sadeh. The sadeh is the field. It's the place where we work the land. It's a place where we have to put in a certain sense of agency and take control of our reality, while we also obviously are totally conscious of the dew, of the rain, of what Hashem brings into the partnership. And maybe it's not a surprise that all of the social justice laws, many of the social justice laws, found related to the field. Pe'ah, Shemitah, Shabbat, all of them talk about the idea of the field. The field's also the place where things are not black and white. If we look in the Tanakh, we look specifically in Sefer Bereshit, the field is a place where we see the messiness, the complexity of human living. And we know that covenantal living comes at a price when we believe that God is, or the gods are all powerful in control and do everything for us. We just need to be passive, manipulate the gods, try and get them to do our will. If not, we're at the fate and the beckon and the call of the gods. Covenantal living is when we have a partnership with Hashem. It's when God invites humans to share the burden of responsibility in the world. And the truth is that it comes with risk, it comes with danger, because there is a high probability either that humans will make mistakes or that they may use, for example, morally questionable means to achieve the ends that they want to achieve. The second major danger, and this is a danger that Hashem warns us about, that we just read now in Sefer Dvarim, that Moshe warns us about, is that people will forget God altogether, and that they'll believe and they'll perceive that the success that they have is theirs alone. They won't intuit the divine hand or the divine pattern in the events that lead to human achievement. The highest level of covenantal living is when humans act in freedom and autonomy under the full knowledge and awareness that there is a hand that guides them. Hamelech b'sadeh, the king is in the sadeh, in the field, means that we are open to seeing God in the pattern of human life, to see him in the ordinary, as Rabbi Avraham Yeshua Heschel speaks about, to be radically amazed. Being radically amazed means seeing God in things that we wouldn't necessarily conceive he was in, to address God, to talk to him rather than define him, to hold him in his immanence rather than in his transcendence. And to my mind, that's exactly what Chabad was speaking about, this idea of a partnership. And I want to bring three short examples of Sadeh at work in the Torah. The first is Yaakov. Yaakov was Ish Tam Yoshev Olim. He was a man, an innocent, naive tent dweller. Rivka, because she believed that he was meant to be the leader, forces him to come to Ish Sadeh. He betrays, he lies, he becomes other than he was. He puts on clothes of his brother, the Ish Sadeh, the man of the field, of Esav. He spends his life in search of completion, of redemption, of going back before the moment of betrayal, but it doesn't come. It doesn't come to him. He doesn't like the consequences of his actions. The truth is that Rivka intuited correctly. He needs to become an Ish Sadeh, to become a leader. To become a leader means that we don't remain in the tent. It means that we don't just remain in the bubble. It means covenantal living means that we go out. It means that we become the Ish Sadeh sometimes. We have to put on the clothes. We have to make pragmatic decisions. We have to look at the situation with real eyes. But we must never, ever lose the Kol Yaakov. We must never lose the inner orientation, the inner value, the inner voice that tells us who we really are, what our essence really is. And therefore, when he finally has some moment of catharsis, some moment of redemption, just before he's about to meet his nemesis, Esav, with the Ish in this liminal space, he speaks. And the Ish says to him, your name is no longer Yaakov. You're not that man anymore, the man of the tent. You're now the Ish Sadeh, but you're not the Ish Sadeh either. You're a combination. You're Yisrael. And Yisrael means Kisarita im Elohim ve'im anashim v'tuchal. You are going to struggle with man and with God, but you will prevail. Ish Yisrael says Ish Sadeh and Ish Yoshev Tam Olim. That's who we are. We are together because we work the Sadeh, because we live in covenant. Yosef too starts very naive, totally obsessed. He doesn't see the pain he causes to his brothers, so much so that he tells them another dream, even though the first dream already caused them pain. And interestingly, in his dream, he dreams of the fields, of the Sadeh, of the corn. And the brothers see this and they think hubris. Why? Because they are farmers. The Sadeh is the realm of Egypt. It's not them. They're just farmers. Eventually, Yosef matures through various adversities that he faces, and he becomes far more sensitive and adept to other people's pain, which is why he hears the dreams of the butler and the baker. They come in, he looks at them, and he says to them, why are your faces sad today? What's going on? And then they tell them his dream. And he interprets their dreams, which eventually leads him to interpreting Pharaoh's dream and presenting to Pharaoh a new way of looking at reality. The Egyptians were fatalists. They believed what they dreamed is what was going to be, what God set out is what is going to happen. Joseph offers them a totally new concept, a covenantal concept, where yes, there are certain things we can't control. There will be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. What Joseph says to them is, we, in the 7 years of famine, we don't have to suffer. We can overcome this adversarial reality. We can work in the Sadeh. We can work with God to make it better, to make reality better. We never ever see throughout the entire narrative of Yosef any conventional open revelation between Yosef and God. And yet, at every point in Yosef's life, after he grows up, we see him mention God. All the time, at every step of the way, he says, God, it's not me who's interpreting, it's God, but we don't see it. It's just that Yosef sees it. He intuits God in the Sadeh. He understands that everything he does, all the work he does, everything, all of his success, he owes to God, because we are all, if we work with God, that's when success happens. That's when things happen. And this is exactly the message he even says to the brothers, not just the good, even the bad. You thought that you were doing something bad. You think it's bad. I'm telling you, God thought it for the good. It was all meant to be. And the final person, the final book is Megillat Ruth. Once again, we see redemption happening in the field. And it's not black and white. And there's no absolute purity. And sometimes there's decisions that are made that are messy and complex and perhaps ostensibly not particularly pure. And yet they lead to redemption. They lead to the King of Israel being born, because the field is the place God comes to meet us. When we do the work that's needed, God responds to us. It's in the field that God is not just God and not just doing the work that he does, that he also redeems us as man. There's no open revelation again in the book of Ruth. We don't see God, we see the pattern of God's fingerprints, of God's footsteps throughout the book. It may just have been random events that lead to a happy ending that humans created on their own. But we know, and Ruth knows, and Naomi knows, and Boaz knows. And all the protagonists in the book, when we read it, we see everything has been done through the pattern of the divine. And therefore, it's not a surprise that when the son of Ruth is born, he is named Oved, because they all did the work. And when they did the work, God came to meet them in the field. And we know in Ruth Rabbah, beautiful Midrash says that Rabbi Eliezer and Yoshua explained that Boaz did his work, Ruth did hers, Naomi did hers, and therefore the Holy One, blessed be he, says, I will do mine. As Hanan Ben Ari recently beautifully released his latest album, the song Yesh Kan Yoter Mizeh, there is more to it than what we see. And the entire song is one of the most beautiful renditions of the idea, expressions of the idea. Yesh Kan Yoter Mizeh, that God's pattern exists in the world if we only open our eyes and look to it. Hamelech b'sadeh. During this time, we see God in the sadeh. Hanan Ben Ari, in one of the parts of the song, he says, Adam lehevel dama, yamav ketzel ovel. He brings in the liturgy of Rosh Hashanah and Kohelet, and he speaks about the man, the fact that man is like a breath, his days are fleeting, they're a shadow. Adam yesodom mi'afar v'sofo le'afar. His origin is dust, and his destiny is to return to dust. But yesh bi yoter mizeh. I have more to me in me than just that. Yesh kan yoter mizeh. There is more to the world than just what we see. When we meet God in the field, when God comes down to meet us there, then we're able to see that there is indeed more than what we think in the world. And that gives us the strength to do the work so that God can meet us and there redemption happens. If you're enjoying these videos, please look at my website, www.tanyawhite.org. You can sign up to my WhatsApp group where I send out messages, and you can also see other podcasts, videos, and articles that I have written. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom and please God, an easy fast.